We're back in the most demanding mod in Factorio, and we're ready to work on getting circuits. Before that, I just want to thank you guys so much for all the support on my channel over the last several months. I'm glad you guys still decided to watch. I'll talk about the whole 5 months thing at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Anyways, let's get started. In between the last video and now, I decided to download a few smaller mods to spice it up a little bit. The most apparent one is prismatic belts. It doesn't really make a difference while I'm only using yellow belts, but I kinda like how it looks. If you don't like the look of it, I'm fine with removing it. I also got a few quality of life mods such as Logistic Train Network, which will come in handy later on, and a mod that adds loaders, which, who would have guessed, load items into machines. Anyways, when we left off in the last video, I had made a few mining drills at a tin patch to the left of my base. I set up a furnace stack down there, but I decided to relocate it to my base so that I could easily get plates if I needed it. While I was doing this, I looked at the atrocities I constructed in my base and decided to clean it up a bit. And I can actually fix this whole thing right here. This is a mess, and it doesn't need to be. I got rid of the copious amounts of spaghetti and the needless coal belts everywhere. Most things in the base don't need an entire belt of coal to fuel them, so I used a much more efficient way of splitting the belt instead. These new proto-splitters saved a lot of wasted inserters and belts. I also started paving my base more, which would stop me from going insane from walking at the speed of a pregnant koala bear. I finished the new tin furnace stack and decided to start a main bus. If you've played Factorio, you probably know what a main bus is already, but if you don't, it's basically a long belt of all your basic materials. You can easily split off a belt in order to supply machines that run on either side of it. After I was done with the base renovation, I began crafting some tar processing plants and destructive distillation columns to be used for some more advanced tar processing. I wanted to get rid of some of the byproducts without just wasting them. One of these more advanced recipes allowed me to turn my overflowing amount of pitch into mainly coke and light oil, and also some other fluids I had no use for at the moment. I could also turn some other byproducts into more creosote oil, which I would later use for treated wood. I could also turn the light oil into aromatics, which is used for zinc mining, and gasoline, which has a high fuel value. After that was done, I began my journey to automate tree farming, because wood is a component in circuits. However, tree farming is super complicated, and one of the main ingredients is moss for whatever reason. Moss takes muddy sludge and carbon dioxide. I had a good amount of carbon dioxide that I was saving up, but the muddy sludge needs soil and water, and a machine called a washer. Thankfully, soil and water are super simple, and muddy sludge was done in a few minutes. There are two moss recipes. The more efficient one requires stone as well, but my stone mine was really small, so it was hard to supply even a little bit. I was able to bring a little belt up, but that was already like half my stone production. The other machines I needed were a botanical nursery, a fastwood forestry, I'm just gonna call it a forestry, and an assembling machine. The botanical nursery is where the tree seedlings are made with some tree seeds, moss, and water. The forestry is where those seedlings, along with more water and some ash, are turned into logs. The logs then go through a wood processing unit to turn them into regular old wood. The tree seeds are made with some wood in an assembler and then rerouted back into the botanical nursery. The remaining wood can then be used for whatever we want. Now that I had the wood I needed for formica, the next thing I needed was formaldehyde. Formaldehyde is made from copper and methane, but methane is pretty hard to get. You need to set up moondrop farming. Moondrops are another plant, whose seeds are capable of producing methane when mixed with carbon dioxide and water. Like trees, they use a self-sustaining feedback loop, where the seeds make more moondrops, which make more seeds, which make more moondrops, which make more seeds, which make... To initiate the process, you have to make some moondrop codexes that are insanely annoying to craft. 50 more air core inductors.
Yay.
While I was waiting for the moondrops to back up and start the cycle, I realized I was getting dangerously low on iron and copper. I knew I would have to expand to further ore patches sometime soon. Choosing to forget about that for now, though, I decided to make use of my main bus by fully automating small parts. It was tricky without splitters and using burner assembling machines, but I eventually had a scuffed small parts factory that I just deposited into a chest. A little while later, I also automated air core inductors and put them both on the same belt on the bus. I then made a mini ball that automated pipes, belts, and inserters, which were getting very annoying to craft by hand. After all that was done, I decided it's time for me to start mining lead because it's used in solder, which, of course, is used for circuits, among other things. However, lead requires acetylene to mine, so to put it simply, it requires a truckload of coke. It first needs lime, which is made from coke and limestone, and then calcium carbide, which is made from the lime and more coke. Then the calcium carbide is mixed with water and a gasifier to make acetylene and some slacked lime junk that I just throw away. After that was done, I made some fluid mining drills and a bunch of pipes and headed up to the lead ore patch. I blueprinted a belt that leads all the way to my base where the ore would be smelted in a furnace stack. It took around half an hour to build all the belts, and then I started working on the pipes to bring the acetylene up. After that was finished, I remembered that the fluid mining drills need burnable fuel to mine, so I just proto-splitted some coal off the adjacent coal patch that I had been using for tin. At last, lead plates were being made. Hey, look at that. First lead plate at 15 hours and 45 minutes. The last ore I needed for circuits was zinc. Zinc has the most complicated mining fluid out of all of them in my opinion, that being aromatics. Thankfully though, I had set up a decent supply earlier when I was doing tar processing. I started by building some mining drills at the zinc patch and then I blueprinted the belt that led to my base. I decided to use a nearby coal patch to fuel it. Soon after it was done and zinc plates were being produced. Remember how I said I was running low on copper earlier? Well now I only had 4 functional mining drills and they were running out of ore quickly. I decided to go to a new ore patch a little to the right of the base, so I set up 10 mining drills for close to an entire belt of ore. As for coal, I decided to use the same patch that my zinc was using. While I was waiting for the belts and stuff to craft, I decided to destroy my science machine since I was going to make a fully automated one by my main bus.
What?
Anyways, I hooked up the new copper belt to the furnaces and got rid of my old mining drills.
It served me well these past years, I guess. I don't know. It served me well. You will be missed.
Now that I had a better supply of copper, I would start working on making the incredibly expensive machines for circuits, like the electronics and PCB factories. These machines would require thousands of plates, so they would take forever. I also remembered that stone bricks were an ingredient in science packs, so I decided to turn my old stone brick mine into a much larger one, and the bricks would be smelted at my base. Now it was time to start working on the first and most complex ingredient in circuits, the printed circuit substrate. For that, though, I would need Formica, copper plates, and some vacuum. I had vacuum and copper, but Formica was complicated. Formica takes fiber, treated wood, sap, and formaldehyde. I decided to do the formaldehyde first. It takes methane and copper plates and a high-pressure furnace. I already had both of those things, so it was done in no time. The next things I did were fiber and treated wood. The fiber just takes a bunch of wood, and the treated wood just takes a bunch of wood and creosote, which I already had a bunch of. Sap is the most annoying part because of how long it takes to make and start up. You need to turn the sap that you can get from breaking trees into sap seeds that you then need to turn into sap trees, which are then put into sap extractor before you can finally get any sap. I started with only a couple of sap extractors, but after seeing how unbelievably slow they worked, I made 3 times as many. But even then, I was making an abysmal amount, so I set up a super mega sap factory near the other farms. It took forever to get all the sap trees in order to finally start them up, but when I was done, they were making almost 1 sap per second.
Could just add 2 more on top to make it 1 a second, but whatever.
After all that was done, I was getting a trickle of PCBs. The other components in circuits are ceramic capacitors, air core inductors, high power resistors, vacuum tubes, copper zinc batteries, and solder. I had everything I needed for all of these except for cellulose and saline water for the battery and graphite for the high power resistors. The cellulose and graphite were just made in a high pressure furnace which I placed nearby. Saline water, however, needs a ton of stone and water. I didn't have a ton of stone, so I made another stone mine. I put the stone mine into some washers which would make the saline water. Now that was done, I manually supplied all of the machines with their ingredients and I could start up the circuit maker.
I've got some pizza now. Make this moment even better. Then, I attach it. Oh. Yes? Yeah? Yes!
At around 20 hours in, the first circuits were made. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's just get this over with. I'm sure you've seen the amount of time between this episode and the last, and yeah. I know I'm not the most consistent when it comes to uploads, but I decided I'd talk about it. The truth is, I don't have a lot of motivation to keep playing this mod. I know. It's not that I don't like it, it's really fun, it's just that I know I'm most likely never gonna finish it due to the sheer scale. That being said, I'm probably gonna do some other things on this channel as well. Don't expect that this series is over, because it's not. Just expect to see more other stuff. Now that that's out of the way, please tell me what else you'd like to see me do on this channel. I'm open to pretty much anything. If you made it this far in the video, comment Pyanodon? More like Megalodon. Alright, bye.